They drew a line in the sand between the middle class and working families and the very wealthy and corporate America.
The question is, look, they don't have the votes, but can they have an effective message that, again, sways some of those Republicans who are looking at Nancy Pelosi and saying, if I lose my seat, she's Speaker?
I mean, I think they're looking at that, but I think there's also a realization that Trump does have more power than perhaps he's given credit for. There's a big difference between a New York Republican, say a Texas Republican. He has a lot of support, and he's gaining more. He has several issues that some Democrats are actually interested in. The 401k, like his daughter Ivanka, the child care tax credit, the mortgage interest deduction. These are issues that Democrats want, and some Democrats in red states have indicated that they're willing to talk with the president about some of these issues. I wouldn't count it out entirely. Also, Republicans, yes, are indeed against many of these issues, but I think Trump is showing that he has a lot more control on the Republican Party that some give him credit for.
No question over the Republicans. I guess the question is, what will the president do? The Speaker's right. He is going to be in Asia next week, but then he'll come back he'll be here for the key moments of this debate. Our White House correspondent, Jeff Zeleny, had a fascinating piece yesterday about the fact that here's a president who, whether you like him or not, can be a very effective communicator. He does have huge sway over Republicans, 85% approval rating over Republicans. Will he hit the road? And in Jeff's piece yesterday, he quoted an administration official saying the president likes his rallies, but he likes staying in the White House more. Some people think he feels a little burned by getting involved in the Alabama Senate race and doesn't want to go out on the road so much anymore. How important is the president to helping Speaker Ryan get those votes?
If you talk to Republicans on Capitol Hill, what they want the president to do is go out on the campaign trail and sell this tax bill. They don't need him involved in the nitty-gritty details because they have to pay for this plan. They don't want him nixing some of those pay-fors on the front end. But what they want him to do is go out there. He is more popular than many of them, and they know that. And so they need the president to back their tax bill because some of these decisions are going to be really tough.
But here's the conundrum on that, which is I think on the nitty-gritty details, the president's instincts are a little more right than the certainly the Republican establishment, the Republican leadership on the Hill. That's where he's this 401k talk, for instance, is a perfect example of where he's kind of got his pulse on where the middle class, his base is, and the Republican leadership doesn't.
Right. His instinct tends to be more populist and some would argue more Democratic, or at least the proposals more aimed at traditional Democratic. Maybe where the parties are all in this churn right now, who knows? But that's where it gets interesting. When he gets out on the road, if he gets out on the road, sometimes he can't resist. He reacts to the crowd, and off we go. So we're at the beginning. This is the first chapter now, but a big victory for the House leadership today. We'll see where the tax debate goes forward. Up next, opioids may be the country's biggest public health crisis right now. Later today, the President of the United States will officially label it a public health emergency. Other big important news in Washington today. This afternoon, President Trump scheduled to declare the opioid epidemic a public health emergency. It's a very significant move, but well short of declaring the crisis a national emergency, a designation the president has been promising. A full national emergency would give the White House direct power to immediately increase federal funding. The lesser designation, which the president will use, means any new money would have to be authorized by Congress in its year-end spending packages. The president promised the full national emergency declaration back in August.
The opioid crisis is an emergency, and I'm saying officially right now it is an emergency. It's a national emergency. This is a national emergency, and we are drawing documents now to so attest.
And here's what the president told reporters just yesterday.
We're going to have a big meeting on opioids tomorrow. We're going to be doing a very, very important meeting sometime in the very near future on opioids in terms of declaring a national emergency, which gives us power to do things that you can't do right now.
Now, I would argue any attention at the highest levels of government paid to this crisis epidemic is good. Any attention is a good thing. But why the retreat? Did the president not understand the language? Was he just a new president who didn't understand the distinction in the language between a national emergency and a public health emergency? Is that what it is? Or was he talked out of going the full limit?
Yeah, two things happened. And one is that there began a series of legal discussions about whether or not you actually could use hurricane and emergency fund, natural disaster funds under the Stafford Act in this way, even for a short period of time, much less a prolonged period of time. But the second and much more important thing that happened was that there were like 3 massive hurricanes that just completely devastated Texas and Florida and Puerto Rico. And if he had gone that route, the Stafford Act, the FEMA route, it would have been that pot of money. Now, could you get Congress to approve more money in some sort of emergency thing? Sure, but it's a bottomless pit of need, particularly in Puerto Rico right now. And the opioid crisis is so expensive, tens of billions of dollars a year. It's like painting a dry wall, that even if you tapped all of those FEMA funds, took them all away from natural disasters, which you're not going to do, nobody would do that, it would not fix the problem.
And so now you have the problem. Again, any attention from the president is good. But now you have the issue. I think a lot of these families would argue, the treatment centers would argue, the law enforcement officials around the country would argue that this is a daily natural disaster for them. That this is tantamount to a constant hurricane, a constant tornado, not minimizing the loss and the pain of the people of Florida, Texas, Puerto Rico, et cetera. But they would argue that. And so the challenge is the president does this today. It's a 90-day, which we assume he will renew. It tells every federal agency, look around. What do you got? What do you got to spend? Can you redirect resources now? But it doesn't have any new money. Nancy Pelosi, the House Democratic leader, says to her, that's the test for the president.
What I would say to the president on that is, show me the money. Declaring an emergency means he can have access to some funds, but the funds in that account are like $57,000, $58,000. So show me the money.
And as we have the conversation, this is not a Washington conversation. I mean, it is, because he's the president, lives here. It is because the money gets allocated here. But I just showed the map that we have here. You don't need me to tell you this. This is a problem in every state, every community in America. And if you look at the map here on the overdose deaths in